Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Let's Have Renaissance, a podcast about writing, editing, publishing, literature, the arts, and more. I am Ito Otini.
And I'm Makaya Otini, and today we're speaking with Ashley Wren Collins. Ashley is a director, choreographer, producer, actor, and author of 5 books, both fiction and nonfiction. Her indie feature film Changing Taste won Best Comedy in the 2013 Burbank International Film Festival and the 2014 Manhattan Film Festival. Her choreography for the smash hit musical Foxy Ladies Love Boogie's 70s Explosion was lauded as sensational by Discover Hollywood, and her writing has been supported by the Edward F. Albee Foundation. We're excited to be with her today.
Thank you for tuning in. We're excited that you're here. Why don't you also subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends?
And if you know anyone who wants to come on the podcast, please do send them our way. Also, if you haven't yet, sign up for our newsletter where we share updates, resources, and opportunities at thedatekeepers.com.
Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. Can you tell us about yourself?
Sure. I was a dancer as a child, and then I sort of fell into acting. And then by the time I was in my teens, I was assistant choreographer in the high school musicals. We had a very robust theater program. My first professional choreography job was at the age of 20, teaching at Stage Door Manor Performing Arts Camp, which is one of the premier performing arts camps in the country. And I taught ballet, tap, and jazz and choreographed 3 musicals, and then took that on into choreographing off-Broadway shows in New York and most recently in Los Angeles. And that eventually turned into directing as well. So I love the arts and I'm very happy to be here. So thanks so much for having me.
You've got so many different disciplines that you're juggling. How do you find, do they interfere with one another, or do you find that those things enrich one another? How do you deal with that?
I love that question. I think that's a great question. I always tell artists who are up and coming in whatever discipline they're working on that it's especially important, especially in this day and age, and here we are 26 years into the 21st century, to wear more than one hat. I'm not saying to spread yourself thin, and I'm not saying to do things that don't ignite a fire in your belly and warm your heart. You should always do something you're passionate about, but I think it's good. And for me personally, definitely, I always say that each branch of my art informs the others. I was, a dancer and an actor first as a child and an actor as a young adult. And then eventually that became choreography and producing my own work in theater and eventually film, but film didn't come about until I was writing. I was always a writer, from being editor of my high school newspaper and then writing journalism articles and eventually books. And so, it's been an evolution, certainly never one I could have predicted, but that's how it's come about. And of course, it's a juggling act and things ebb and flow. But as I'm sure you both know as writers, it can be really great to work on something, put it down and come back to it with fresh eyes, even if you've already had feedback. That process of digesting material and letting it sit and mulling it over and then coming back to it with fresh eyes is great. So it's the same thing in my disciplines. If I'm working really hard on a lot of theater projects, that's great. And then when I put those down, I might return to my writing, and then that sort of moves full steam ahead. And I'm certainly never ever bored.
Yeah, I love doing different things at the same time too, because if I have one job for the rest of my life, I think I'll get really bored. But yeah, do you dance when you write or when you are doing like...
That's great. I would say I definitely do a lot of compartmentalizing because you have to have that laser focus that whatever project you're working on at the moment needs. So I'm really able to shift gears like that. But yes, I too cannot imagine doing just one thing. What is that like? Sometimes I think it must be nice, but it's just not how I'm wired. A couple months ago, I saw people crossing the street. I was actually moving things into storage. I'm in New York City, so my storage unit is not in my apartment building. Like most people, if they have storage, it's not on site. And I was moving things into storage, and then I had a friend with a car driving me across town, and I saw people crossing the street. And it was just I think they had coffees in hand, they had no agenda, and they were just clearly enjoying the aimless, lovely, wandering, beautiful weekend afternoon. And I was like, what is that like? And for a minute, I was like, that must be so nice. They were just like, let's go to brunch. Let's get a coffee. Let's sit in the park. Anyways, I don't always get to do those things. So I was probably a little wistful. Anyways, that was a long tangent on when you do more than one thing and many more than one things, as you know, you might not get to have a to-go coffee and just wander in the park as much as you'd like.
Well, Micaiah and I try sometimes and we're like, okay, tomorrow is our day off. Okay, right. Tomorrow, when we're like thinking like, okay, we're going to do nothing. And then we're like, oh, I have an idea for a story. And it's like, okay.
That's great. Which as an artist, that's always what you're doing, right? Like brewing and you never know where the ideas are going to come from.
So in your writing, there's clearly a narrative element. Is there also a narrative element in your choreography?
So in choreography, I'm usually working with a director, and there's some I've collaborated with for years. I would say my choreography is definitely influenced by the fact that I started as an actor. So when you act, you have to deep dive into a role, whether you're playing a historical figure, a figure somebody's made up, but it'll be very specific. This character was written in this time period, this country, having gone through this, and all that. And so you sort of dive deep. And sometimes you have to dive deep into something you don't know anything about. And so that's in choreography, director has a vision and different directors articulate that in different ways. But my most recent project in Los Angeles was Foxy Ladies Love Boogie 70s Explosion, or Foxy Ladies for short. And it was a musical review of music sung by women in the 1970s. So it really celebrated women and their talent and skills and the voice they gave to everything from folk music all the way through to rock and roll and disco. So it was really taking an audience on an evolution of women's voice growing. Women's rights were growing in the country. We were moving through civil rights and Roe v. Wade and all sorts of things. So it was a tumultuous time, and showcasing that was also very evident in the history and evolution of dance. And then the director had a big concept for what he wanted. Sometimes with the directing, there's a lot of certain elements that people will stick on. And I know this too, because I'm a director and you're collaborating with other artists and you'll be like, I know I want this, or I know it's going to be in this outfit, or, the costume designer, I know this number is going to be red, white, and blue because we're celebrating the US here, or whatever it is. And you just sort of take that visual and run with it. Whatever you're doing, whether it's writing or directing a film or theater, whatever it is, you're telling a story. I always say I'm a storyteller. And so your job is to stay true to that story and keep the integrity of that, whether that's in a visual outpouring through theater or film or on the page in writing.
You said you collaborate with other people. Do you collaborate with people also in your writing?
I do collaborate with people in my writing. My first book was called Produce Your Own Damn Movie, written with a B-movie king, Lloyd Kaufman. Lloyd always has a co-writer on his books. He is the personality and the one with the history and the career and experience. And then he looks with someone to write in his voice, which is very unique. And so that's how I started. And because I was an actor who knew how to dive into a role, I was confident I could dive into his voice. So I developed this niche of writing nonfiction with a sense of humor to make it palatable and make it fun for a reader to read. I would do all the writing, and then Lloyd would approve and edit or say, can we add a section about this or that? And that's pretty much how all of my nonfiction co-authorships have worked. When I wrote Along Comes the Association, Beyond Folk Rock and Three-Piece Suits, that was with an original band member of the association, Russ Jaguar. And the association wrote Windy, Along Comes Mary, Cherish, a lot of big hits in the 60s. He, of course, had lots of stories and experience, but didn't know how to go about writing the book. And so that was diving into folk rock and what was going on in the country and doing the research. And so that's how those co-authorships have worked. But my most recent one for fiction, it's a romance novel, and it's told from alternating points of view. And so I wrote the female chapters from the heroine's point of view, and my male co-author, Jordan Rockwell, wrote the chapters written by the hero, the main male character. And then we collaborated on the editing and the rewriting and all that.
That's a lot of fun. Micaiah and I collaborate in all our fiction, and we encourage other writers to do it too. Can you tell us about your experiences and the challenges? And, it's for us, we're married and you work with strangers. How do you build that trust?
Sure. Well, I always say, I can't imagine, that's incredible that you guys are married and can work together. That doesn't always work. Some people can be great at being married, but not meant to work together. So congratulations. You are a unique and wonderful pair there. And every partnership's different. I always joke that I have the unfortunate quality and that I can work with anybody. But that's just to say I can key into how someone likes to work or maybe what I'm human, so I have my own weaknesses, but like I can see where the strengths and weaknesses are and the balance and sort of like fill in and, because everybody's different. But with my current co-authorship on the romance novel coming out, a lot of times, as you probably know from fiction, for me, writing fiction was very different coming from nonfiction because I realized, wow, you really have to have a lot more figured out. Because in nonfiction, I could do a ton of research on a book and then write a huge chunk of like, I know this needs to be in the book. I want to write this section. This is all very clear to me now, but it's a puzzle. I might not know exactly where that's going to go in the book, but I can write it. Whereas you can't start in the middle with fiction. You might know how it ends, or you might have a final sentence or an idea. But in fiction, I sometimes don't feel like figuring out the whole structure. So that's definitely Jordan. Jordan likes that part. So he'll figure out the structure. And as soon as he does that, I can then fine tune that and I get really into the prose and the voice of the characters and the flow and pace. So we're a good match for each other in that way. It's wonderful to have also just a partner to be accountable with, right? Like, hey, we said we were going to write this chapter by then. And it just makes it more fun because writing can be so solitary and so sedentary. So it's nice to have that person to bounce ideas off with. But I think it's wonderful. It seems like you're able to work at such a fast pace. I too can work fast, but I can find it very tedious to think of all the details up front. So I know like Jordan and I work on the big beats first, the big turning points, and we figure out what those are. And then we fill in the rest. But I do very well, even if someone gives me the worst idea or the worst outline, just whatever frame it is, I can immediately take it and run with it. It's just, I don't like to be the first person to be like, But it's interesting because I'm actually going to start writing a TV pilot, I guess, where I do have the first idea. And so then I have to work out, how does that work out over a whole season and an arc of multiple seasons? And so I don't know, you could have a process, but I find that process shifts a little bit based on the demands of what it is you're working on, and you sort of adapt and your way in.
Is this your first time doing a TV show?
Yes, I've acted in them before, small parts, but it'll be my first time writing one. Yes.
As a multidisciplinary artist, I'm sure you always think about marketing your work. How do you go about that?
That's a great question. Produced indie feature film, indie short film, and tons of theater off Broadway. So I do always think like a producer, which I think is very helpful. A producer's thinking about marketing, budgeting, everything like that. So yes, while you have to write what's from your heart, you also have to think who's reading this, right? Who's the audience and what they're thinking. So sometimes when I'm working on my art, I then try to stand outside it and look at it objectively as a person who's never encountered these characters or this story or this situation and see what that is and what it demands. I mean, right now we're working on the marketing for the romance novel coming out. Obviously, I'm coming from the nonfiction world and my other disciplines, so I'm trying to reach a new audience. And so just looking on how to engage with those romance novel readers. And so that's been fun. It's definitely a learning curve, but it's fun to jump into. Again, it's like taking on a new role. So we'll see. And the marketing is changing all the time, right? Even the level of social media that's here today wasn't like this a couple of years ago. I always tell other artists too, whatever type of art you're trying to share with the world, raise money for, or get an agent for, or a publisher for, or whatever it is, while you need the expertise and help of, someone in that field that you're seeking to help you move it forward, no one's going to know your story better than you or be able to articulate it better than you. And so that's what you have to remember. And you do have to listen to your gut. The musical I worked on years ago, we went through several interviews with directors they wanted to attach to it. And we just knew that the co-creators and I just knew certain people weren't a fit. Not everybody is a great match for every project.
Speaking of being a good match for the projects, I'm curious about the nonfiction work that you've done. It might have been easy for you to sell yourself as a ghostwriter, but it's really cool that you were able to own that work and put your name on it and be public about being a major contributor to that work. How did you negotiate that? And what do you think gave your co-authors the confidence to have you named as a co-author?
That's a great question. I have ghostwritten one book that was published in Australia. That was super fun. It was for an executive, and she's a major executive with a huge following, and she wanted a calling card, and it was very fun. There were illustrations, but also lessons and principles that she teaches, and that was very fun. But writing is so much work that I feel like writers should definitely get the credit.
Amen.
So,
I agree.
Yes. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I've been fortunate. Some of the other arts I have pursued, the writing really sort of fell into my lap, starting with the first book I co-authored. I happened to meet Lloyd and he said he needed a co-author. We had a friend in common. I was like, I can do that because I knew I wanted to write a book someday. I knew how hard it was to get published. And I knew he gave co-authors credit on the cover and all that. And so I said, I'll do it. Like, I wanted the experience. It wasn't a lot of money, but I'm so glad I did it. And, I learned a lot. And then because of that, and because that was written with a sense of humor, I got sought out to write for 2 travel guide books that were done with a sense of humor. Like, those ended up, in my lap. And then the one I did, Along Comes the Association, I was at my agent's house and the band member, Russ, was sitting there with his co-author who he wasn't happy working with. And they both knew the relationship wasn't working. And he was saying, I want another co-author. And I happened to be at the house, either leaving a meeting or whatever. And he was like, I want to work with her. Right place, right time.
We always ask our guests to read. Do you have something that you would like to share with us?
Sure. So I'm going to share an excerpt from She Wrote, He Wrote, a New York Love Story. This is a romance novel told from alternating points of view. So I'm going to read aloud starting in the middle of a chapter of Joanna's chapter. She's our heroine. And I think you will be able to catch up pretty fast. She is headed to a speed dating event in Bryant Park in New York City. Here we go. A woman at a microphone on a platform tapped a fork on her wine glass. Welcome, eligible and fabulous single men and women of New York City. This is 4 Minutes in Heaven, benefiting the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I am your host for the evening, Holly McIntyre, Holly said. A round of polite applause followed her statement. Ladies, you should have been given a number from 1 to 20, so please find the table that corresponds to your number and take a seat. Men, you should also have been given a number from 1 to 20, so please stand in front of the empty chair at the table that corresponds to your number, but do not sit until the bell rings. A chorus of excuse me's and a general hubbub of excitement buzzed as participants made their way to their seats. Joanna was number 7 in the second row of 4, and Pauline was last in the 5th row at number 20. Man number 13 bent his head to lean into the woman sitting at table 13. Holly chided into the microphone. We haven't started yet. Tonight, may you all experience 4 minutes in heaven with your soulmate as we take one step closer to curing cancer. As if the two are synonymous. On your mark, get set, go. Holly rang the bell. A wiry, attractive, ginger-haired guy with tortoise-shell glasses and a dusting of sporty freckles sat across from Joanna, smiling. Hi, I'm Ted, he said. Nice to meet you. Joanna, nice to meet you as well. This is weird, right? Totally. I've never done one of these things before, Ted confessed, leaning in, his warm brown eyes sparkling. Me neither. Joanna nervously pushed her hair behind her ear, fluffing it so the bottom part was in front of her shoulders. So we're both virgins. Right. In this case, she didn't want to give Ted the wrong idea. Look, I have no idea how to go about this, but I was thinking maybe we could play 20 questions, sort of like just interview each other and see if there's any possibility of us in the future. Is that nuts? I'm game. Okay, great. Ted said, smiling again. I'll go first. Works for me. Okay. Favorite movie? Tie between Call Me By Your Name and Barbie. You? Dune Part 2 followed by Despicable Me 3. Wait, Minions? Aren't we all minions? Go ahead. It's your turn. Lightning round. Since when is it a lightning round? Okay. How many brothers and sisters do you have? Joanna asked. I'm an only child. That explains it. You? Ted asked. 1 brother. Cool. Okay, so where do you want to be in 5 years? The ever-famous interview question, Joanna laughed. Okay, well, I really want to be getting paid to write all of my own stuff. No, I mean personally. Oh, you meant okay, I get it. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, if I found the right person, I would really like to get married. So maybe married in 5 years and having a great time and eventually start a family, but no rush, Joanna said, a little too loudly. You? Marriage sucks. Someone gets fat or cheats or both. Human beings aren't meant to be monogamous. A good relationship lasts 10 years max, and then he made the sound of an airplane nosediving. It flatlines. Don't you think that when that happens, it's because the people weren't right for each other? Nah. It's just how Mother Nature intended it. What's your pet peeve? Ted asked Joanna. Men who fart in front of others. I mean, that's what the bathroom is for, lateness and cockiness. You? When people squeeze the toothpaste tube from the top instead of the bottom and use bath towels to dry their hands instead of hand towels. Ted said as the bell clanged loudly. Holly leaned into the microphone. Men, you have 15 seconds to say goodbye and move to your next table and stand in front of it. Time's up, Joanna said. Ted stood, pushed his chair in huffily, and moved to the table to his left. Joanna took her pencil, put a big fat X next to number 1, and wrote Ted is dead in the notes column. Joanna limped through numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. No one made enough of an impression for her to muster any excitement, and she was getting tired of the intense 4-minute laser focus periods on strangers. All she could see of Pauline 3 rows ahead of her was the bobbing animated back of her head. Just as Joanna exhaled noisily, she heard a musical baritone voice above her. Hey, said a hunky guy with swimmingly deep brown eyes and an inviting athletic build. Hi. Joanna tugged nervously on her hair, sitting taller in her seat so as not to accentuate the slope of her shoulders any more than necessary. Name's Pete Kwan. Just moved here from North Carolina. Hi, Pete from North Carolina. I'm Joanna Peterson Mills. Welcome to New York City. Do you like it? Yeah, it's great. I love it so far. I just finished the MBA program at Duke. Congrats. What do you do? I just started working at the mayor's office. I like business and politics, so it seems like a good fit. What do you do? I work for a trade magazine company that publishes magazines on things like metal production. Didn't know there was such a thing. Pete smiled a crinkly smile. Joanna laughed. Yeah, well, it's not too exciting, but it's a start. I love writing, and I'm hoping to make my living doing it. That's cool. I don't meet too many creative types. What do you like to do in your spare time? Travel, bike, yoga, catch any live entertainment I can, explore museums and restaurants, have fun, the usual. What about you? I'm into Warrior Watch, Pete said. Is that like Dungeons and Dragons? It's a group of men who believe that the world will end in our lifetime, and the only way to appease the force of nature driving us to that end is to spin our life force as many times as possible for the survival of mankind. We're warriors watching out for planet Earth and all of the Mighty One's creatures, Pete said. I joined in North Carolina, but since moving here, I've been able to join the Tribeca branch. Spin your life force? Joanna took a sip of water. Ejaculate as much as possible. We will now take a 15-minute break. Holly's voice boomed through the microphone as Joanna spat out her water. Joanna took her pencil, put another X to number 10. Pete wants to repeat. Not with me, she wrote, rising from the table in search of the restroom. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you.
So nice to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Ashley. Take care.